Jurors in the Jodi Arias trial. Again, it's been nearly a week since these jurors failed to reach a unanimous decision of life or death concerning Jodi Arias, and now more are speaking out. Two women who sat on the panel broke their silence on HLN's Dr. Drew on Call, and they talked about the emotional moment in court when they heard from Travis Alexander's brother and sister. Joining us now, attorney John Phillips. John, you listen to some of this emotion, and especially how impactful those victim impact statements were. How much does that weigh on a jury when they hear from Stephen and Samantha or family members like that?
You know, this is the crux of what this is all about. You know, this is the lives that were at stake, and it goes from being a watcher of a play to actually seeing that this is real. These are lives, and you know, these are family members. And like the juror said, they didn't know who the family was or how many were in it, but now they knew. The tears told.
Did you, in watching Jodi Arias' allocution, when she had her chance, 19 minutes to speak with the jury, what were your thoughts then? Because we're not hearing a lot of the jurors talk about any kind of connection with Jodi Arias at all, or even believing much of what she had to say.
No, and we're not hearing from the jurors that obviously said that she wasn't deserving of death either, and there's probably obvious reasons for that. But you know, it's been said and done. You know, it was 19 minutes, and she could have gone a lot longer. But you're in a position where you can't. There's nothing she could have said.
Yeah. Well, she was out there for 18 days. We remember that. And John's going to help us walk through this over the next hours. We listen to more from the jurors. Again, it's fascinating to hear what they had to say. And what do you think? What do you think about what you're hearing from the jury? Love to hear from you. Call me up, 1-877-TEL-HLN. Very fascinating to listen to that. The mitigating factors from some of the four that voted life. Back with us, attorney John Phillips. John, does that surprise you at all? So the four that voted life, they were believing abuse potentially as a child and also at the hands of Travis Alexander. Surprise you?
No, I mean, getting 12 people to agree to put somebody to death is tough. And you're going to have people weigh excuses not to do that. And especially in a trial where they're going to be second-guessed. Everybody in their friend and family network knew these were the jurors of Jodi Arias. And so a lot of them watched the trial. And so you have to answer more if you're going to put somebody to death than if you're going to give somebody for life. And so I can see some wiggle room by a few people, it's not the way I would have voted.
Well, thanks for the honesty on that one. Because I think, we hear this and we wonder, after all the lies she told, can you believe anything she says? And obviously some believe some of it.
Yeah, they did. And it's almost keeps me speechless. You don't see many trial lawyers that are made speechless, but it's, they pulled on, I hate to see it, and you're going to see it in Trayvon Martin. I've got a case, Jordan Davis, you've seen it, where the criminal defense has to victimize the victim. And they threw so much of that mud at the wall that some of it stuck. And that's what's unfortunate in these cases. And, that's probably some of the mud that prevented a full conviction of full death penalty.
Interesting. As distasteful as that could be, and it was to so many, potentially that could have saved her life. Is that what you're saying, John?
That's what I'm saying. And you see it, what did we have last week in Trayvon Martin, or 2 days ago? It was all about gold teeth and whether he had ever smoked pot and guns and all of that. And that's the nature of these high-profile trials. We didn't see it in Casey Anthony because you couldn't smear the baby. But in these cases, you see the victimization of the victim.
All right. Hey, John, thanks again. John's going to stay with us as we listen to more from the jurors and what we can glean from it. And, the murder of Travis Alexander, drama-filled courtroom, really made Jodi Arias a household name. She tried to cover up the crime until it all came crashing down. Because if there is a new jury and they cannot come to a unanimous decision, it's a hung jury again, then it goes to the judge, Sherry Stevens. Death's off the table, and the judge will decide either life with or without parole. John Phillips back with us, an attorney. John, how difficult is it going to be moving forward? Just all the challenges. Number one, finding an impartial jury. And then number two, potentially finding a jury who would say death penalty.
The nation knows about this case, and Arizona really knows about this case. Finding a jury that hasn't heard something about it or hasn't already, I mean, the standard is not whether you know something about it, but whether you've got an idea. And it seems like most of the country not only has an idea, but feels like the jury that did it wrong. Well, justice is not vindication. Justice does not require death, and a third of this jury felt that it didn't meet that standard. That doesn't mean they were wrong. It just means that a jury of her peers were, scratching their heads about exactly whether she met that threshold that we generally give to the Jeffrey Dahmers of the world, the serial killers, the ones that we find most disgusting. It's going to be tough.
Did the number 8-4 surprise you? Did you think it was going to be more of a 11-1, 10-2 split?
I was looking at the number of men, and that seems about right. I said that there wouldn't be a death penalty in this case early on After Dark, and I didn't feel like this many men would, with conviction, stand behind giving her the death. Not 12 jurors. So you never know if you get into the jury prediction business, you're going to lose every time because you just can't do it.
That's well put. And again, to let everybody know the jury breakdown, 8 men, 4 women. But from one of the jurors that we've heard from basically said it wasn't gender, it was age. It was the older members of the jury that went for life as opposed to death, and didn't get into specifics on vote count, but that's what she tipped her hand to Jane Velez Mitchell. So really interesting. We want to hear from you on all this that John and I are talking about, what you're hearing from the juries. Taking your calls. 1-877-TEL-HLN. It's open mic. Can't wait to hear from you. There you go. And many wondered. The defense basically said in court, it's a fantasy land if you think that this jury's not watching some of this coverage. They're one of the jurors saying, no, it was all about Nickelodeon and Lifetime. And now, as Dr. Drew aptly points out, it's all HLN, right? We're taking your calls, 1-877-TEL-HLN. Attorney John Phillips with us as well. John, were you concerned about that this jury may be watching even though they're not supposed to?
That's a long time to try to seclude yourself from everything. In Florida, these trials, and in the South, there's just more of a trend of sequestration.
You look at this, and again, it's fascinating. Anything surprising you about what you're hearing? Some of the jurors talking about, I believe it was the jury foreman, hinting that Juan Martinez may have been a little too abrasive out there for his liking.
That's Juan. He only has that one speed, I think. Although he I say that, but he changed speed so much during that closing. It was beautiful, well woven. But, again, it goes back to the comment I made. If you get into the jury prediction business, you never know what they're going to say.
Yeah, exactly. And again, Juan Martinez, he had fans all over the country, and being there in Phoenix, very well liked as he tried this case. Again, we're taking your calls. Open mic, 1-877-TEL-HLN. Michael's with us in Alabama. Hey, Michael, your thoughts?
Yeah, about the jury. I believe that the jury did a commendable job on what they could do. But not only that, I believe that a lot of people, when they stood up on a jury, they don't understand the death penalty phase. In my opinion, is that the reason why we have the death penalty is to deter people going out and killing people, because that'd give you a second thought to go out and kill somebody. In my opinion, it would be. I think they really tried hard. I think they tried exhilarantly. They did the best they could. And I think that Jodi Arias has never wanted to go to trial in the very beginning through all this. She even mentioned it in her allocation that she said, well, I didn't even want this to go to trial. I mean, how could you not go to trial? You murdered somebody.
Yeah, right. What would you have voted, Michael? Life or death?
Because the evidence was there, and Juan Martinez was on it, especially the part of the video when he was talking to her on the stand, and he had said, did you see anybody behind you when you're running through the hallway and you believed that your life was in danger? And Travis wasn't even behind her. He was still standing in the bathroom trying to collect his life together.
Yeah. Hey, Michael, thanks again for the call. Appreciate the insights. Again, we're hearing from you as we listen to these jurors talking about all aspects of this, everything from Juan Martinez and was he too tough or not, Jodi Arias, her believability or not, and John Phillips with us, attorney. John, and again, and this isn't surprising, her believability is just about nil. Did you ever think in watching this, especially in those 18 days on the stand, maybe she is connecting here a little bit, especially early on when she was telling her life story?
She just needed one. That's all she needed. She needed one juror, and in over 18 days, it's in all of the personal stuff and during the allocution when she talked about, her relationship with her family, all she had to do was appeal to one, and guess what? She got 4. And, Michael, from my home state of Alabama, I might mention, was right in that who is this going to deter? And if those 4 jurors believe that and found some shred of humanity in her, that's, that justifies their decision.
And is that the strategy? Do you go in as a defense attorney saying, let's just get 1, let's just get 2, and we're playing to that?
A hung jury is a win, and in most states, this hung jury, where it is, would be over. There would be no second death penalty phase. And, there's argument that it's unconstitutional the way Arizona has it written. Now, that's for lawyers smarter than me. But, you generally don't get 2 bites at the apple, and the one and the gang get one more chance at it.
Yeah, and they just might. And again, we're moving forward, and they say they are going to go for another jury and another penalty phase. But we're taking your calls in the meantime. We're listening to jurors, getting your thoughts on what they have to say. It's open mic. There's the number, 1-877-TEL-HLN. Welcome back to HLN News Now. We're taking your calls, 1-877-TEL-HLN. We've been listening to jurors from the Jodi Arias trial. Really interesting, fascinating stuff to listen to the things that mattered to them, how they came to a decision. At the end, no decision. They couldn't come up with a unanimous decision, life or death, for Jodi Arias. We'll let you listen to more of that. But right now, let's go to the phones. Mary is with us in California. Hey, Mary, I understand you spent some time behind bars yourself. Tell us about it.
Oh, my gosh, I did. I was arrested for transporting marijuana, and I got sentenced 16 months in state prison in California. At the last minute, that is 16 months, and for a first-timer equals 8 months and 2 days. So at the last minute, the judge said I could go to jail if I wanted to, because I begged my attorney, please don't let me go to prison. So it would have been only 245 days in prison, but I wound up staying 272 days in jail. Anyways, when I got out of jail, I got 3 years probation. Did that.
Well, what was it like? What was prison life like?
That's what I'm about to tell you. I was at my last 3 months of probation, and I got arrested for not calling my probation officer. And then when I went to court the next day, the judge told me I had to finish out my sentence in jail or prison. And I already knew what jail was like, so I said, I'll pick prison. It was the worst mistake of my life. It was awful. When you first get there, intake, the people who intake you, prison is run by inmates. Don't get it wrong. Prisoners run the prison, not COs. It was awful. These people are mean and evil. They have no conscience. It's terrible. It's the worst. I was threatened. I got hit with the combination. Talk about combination logs. But let me tell you what these people do. If you're a lifer, like Life Without, even the people Life Without only go to SHU, SHU, or Special Housing Unit for 3 years. Then they go to GP, which is general population. So when you're on Yard A, that's the receiving or intake. That's takes 3 weeks. And then they farm you to either Yard C, B, C, or D. But I thought it was hello, I had some pot. Hello, you killed 9 people. I was in the same room. There's 8 beds in my room, right? And 6 people killed someone, and I didn't call my probation officer. It was awful, okay? Awful. There's 8 beds. These people threaten you all the time. They make Pruno. Okay, these people, this is what they get to do in prison, Mike.
And Pruno, by the way, for everybody, it's a makeshift wine that prisoners or inmates may cobble together some ingredients to make Pruno. Pretty potent stuff. It can be dangerous as well, but go ahead.
So they laugh and dance, they have fun. They make vibrators out of batteries.
Right.
They're so ingenious. They're disgusting. They have sex. They buy TVs. They get to wear their own clothes. They bully people. They fight. They're living it up in there. So if people say, "Oh, Life Without," that would be worse. They have to live with what they did the rest of their life. They make a life in prison. It's their own.
Well, for you, it was a living hell, but for some, they make the best of it. Is what you're saying?
They love it.
They love it. Wow.
Yes, it's like they call it the house. Okay, I was in someone's house. Okay, and you know how people aren't supposed to know your private business, but when the prisoners are the ones intaking you, they knew right away. The people in my room already knew that I was only going to be there for that short time, right? So.
Hey, Mary, last one before we let you go, and appreciate the insights, by the way. What should happen to Jodi Arias, life or death?
I think she should have death, because there's no third choice. If there was a third choice, Life Without, but in solitary confinement, then that would be fine.
I got you.
But
that's something. Mary, we got to run. Thanks again for the insights.
Okay.
That's my colleague Vinny Politan forwarded the theory of life row, which is basically death row, but you're there for the rest of your life. Kind of what Mary's talking about there. So really interesting to get that kind of a firsthand account from Mary, who spent some time behind bars. All right. And that's not the first account of some sort of a stare down. One of the jurors, or jurors from Dr. Drew's show, Katie Wick, who was in the court quite often, said that she was stared down by Jodi Arias. Here's one more for you. Remember that Inside Edition interview from a few years back where Jodi Arias said, "No jury will convict me"? I spoke with a cameraman in Phoenix about that. It was one of the folks in on that shoot and said that there was a stare down there as the questions got tougher. At one point, Jodi Arias just stared down the interviewer for 30 or 40 seconds to the point where he got very uncomfortable. How about that? John Phillips is with us, an attorney. John, what do you make of this? Does that surprise you at all, these accounts of Jodi Arias staring people down, especially a juror who's going to decide your fate?
I don't know if Jodi is brilliant or just crazy dumb. I can't determine. You know, there is a theory that maybe she was trying to intimidate or try to get into this juror's head so much that the juror then complained to the judge, and then somehow she gets recused for being prejudiced and basically formulating opinion before the evidence is done. You know, and I don't know if that's, is Jodi that smart? Like the interview where she talked about wanting death. Is she that smart that she thought she could do reverse psychology? There's so much about Jodi Arias that, you know, Dr. Drew could probably spend years with to try to figure her out.
Right. Well, what about you as an attorney? How would you handle a client like this?
Oof, I wouldn't take her case. You know, this is one that you want to have some control over the proceedings as the lawyer. You know, you want it to be by, you know, basically I say I'm the director and producer of a play. You've written the facts and we got to go within it. Well, with Jodi, she wants to be the producer, writer, director,
Absolutely.
and everything. And, you know, that doesn't work within my model. I can't tell that story. And I hate to compliment her team, but they you know, I got to give them their props for dealing with.
They had the work cut out for them.
They did, and nobody would have been able to, you know, again, a hung jury is about all you can ask for here, and all you needed was one. And Jodi was doing these mind games with jurors the entire time, and, you know, playing reverse psychology and doing interviews when nobody in the world will allow their client to do it. It's crazy.
Yeah, you know, and being in court myself, watching her, she was nonstop chatter with attorney Jennifer Wilmot, with the mitigation specialists as well. Do you want your client involved like that? And when does it go over the line to where they're trying to run the show and get in the way of what you're trying to do?
It really depends on the client. You know, this is the client's justice. This is their day in court. And mostly what I do is I'm the guy with the right white hat representing, you know, wrongful death and injury victims, you know, people that have been wronged. I do, you know, about 25% of my practice is criminal defense. And those cases are the toughest because people's life's on the line and they've seen TV and they have this idea of what they think works. And, you know, oftentimes I have to say, look, this isn't LA law. This isn't, you know, crime and punishment. This is real. And if you look unsympathetic, if you look like you're trying to conspire, a jury's not going to like you. First thing we need to do is try to get them to humanize you as much as possible.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Just bottom line, human emotions and reading a jury, you know, so it seems so important. Okay, John, thanks again. John's going to stay with us as we listen to more from the jurors. One of the jurors on the panel talks about some of those snarky questions for Jodi. Again, she voted for death, one of 8 for voting for life. Back with us, attorney John Phillips. John, many people have talked about, I want to get your take as well, that it's one thing to say at the outset of a trial, yes, I could vote death. It's another thing to actually do it, isn't it?
It is. I said earlier in the show that I would have done it. And, you know, I got a major in criminal justice, and my professor, I'm going to say his name, John Smikla, was one of the just staunch anti-death penalty guys, talking about how much of a waste it is financially, how much it's not a deterrent, all the issues. And I'm still 50-50. I think I'd still be, you know, a fair and impartial juror when it comes to this. But unless you're in that position of putting yourself as the, you know, the god of this trial, the person who's going to decide life or death, it's hard to Monday morning quarterback.
Do you think there are people, and some have said this, of the 4 on there, that they could have never voted death, that they knew at the outset they probably couldn't do it? Is that a possibility?
It's always a possibility. You hope and pray that people are honest because, you know, justice depends on honesty in the jury selection process, that, you know, you've at least contemplated that question and decided, you know, at least like me, you could if the facts were right. Now, it may be those facts are so extreme that, you just never get there. You're going to need, somebody, a triple homicide. But, at least in this case, people, I hope, answered that honestly.
Got it. Okay, we'll take your calls, by the way. It's open mic, 1-877-TEL-HLN. What do you think about some of the things you're hearing from this jury? Can't wait to hear from you. Attorney John Phillips is with us. John, were you surprised that you heard that one of the jurors mouthed an "I'm sorry" to the family?
They had several months of investment with this family, and the ones that felt that the vindication was necessary for justice clearly were going to be disappointed by a lack of cohesiveness to be able to have that.
Have you seen that in cases? Just that emotional attachment from a jury to a victim's family?
Absolutely, and in some cases the jury can compromise and find some gray area, but here, life versus death, like Vinnie Folleton said, there was no gray area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, we're going to hear from you on this. Just your thoughts on what we are hearing from the jury. Call us up. 1-877-TEL-HLN is the number. Again, it could be the emotions you're hearing, or why couldn't they come to a unanimous decision? Life or death. It's open mic, 1-877-TEL-HLN. Now we could be facing another jury to hear, again, evidence in the penalty phase. We're taking your calls, 1-877-TEL-HLN. Barbara's with us, Missouri. Hey, Barbara, your thoughts? Barbara, you there? One more try. Barbara, Missouri. All right, we'll try and establish our connection with Barbara. 1-877-TEL-HLN is the number. Attorney John Phillips with us as well. Man, you just hear that, John, and this family. And again, that's human nature. When you're a juror and you're looking at a family and their emotions for months on end, you can't help it, connect in some way, right?
You can't. No matter who the criminal is, the criminal defendant is, the victims' families are the ones that are truly suffering the most. Especially in a murder case, you can't bring them back. You've just got to redefine justice. You've got to find some way to make it right, and there's just no way to do it here.
You talk about the human dynamic and relationships, how a jury relates to the family, to Jodi Arias. Even the attorneys, Juan Martinez, Kirk Nurmi, Jennifer Wilmot. Are you cognizant of that as an attorney? As you're speaking, are you looking for connection points where they're engaged with what you're saying and you change if not? John? You
do. And the more jurors, the more you have to juggle. And here, they had 12 and then the alternates with 6, which most civil cases and non-capital cases are done. You can generally focus in on the people you need to focus in on. You can't get lost in that. You've got a production. You've got this whole trial, and you've got witnesses and all that to make sure that it's moving steadily. But, you can tell the sympathetic eye of another human relating to your client.
Hey, real quick, one of the jurors mentioned how much they liked having jury questions at their disposal. It really helped them just cut right to the chase. Do you like that?
I love it. We have it in Florida, and you can read what's going on and act accordingly when you get some good questions.
Okay, hey, Barbara, I believe, is with us. Barbara, you there? Boy, we're trying.
There she is.
Barbara, go ahead real quick. Trying to squeeze you in here.
I'm a dissenting opinion. I feel really bad for the Alexanders, but I feel they did get justice. Premeditated murder in the first is justice. And I thought the death penalty was reserved for serial killers, cop killers, and baby killers. Obviously, what she did was horrendous, but it doesn't give us as a civilized society the right to put her to death.
Barbara, thanks for the call. Clock ticked away on us. John, thank you as well. And we will see. She still might get the death penalty. New jury could come now in America.